Hey there, and welcome to another episode of the Home Tech Podcast. Jason Griffin here. So happy to have you with us. I am joined, as always, by my partner, Seth Johnson. Seth, how's it going?
It's a little hot.
Yeah? You enjoying some warm weather there in your garage?
So I just closed the door because I forgot it was open, and Kris is reminding me that he can hear birds. So thanks, Kris. I appreciate it.
I like the birds. Personally, I'm a fan of the birds. I find them soothing.
They add a little ambience to our home tech show here.
I won't repeat what Greg is calling you in the chat room right now.
I can see Greg. I see you.
Oh, man.
It's 90 degrees here with 63% humidity in my garage, according to my little canary. What's it like in Denver, Jason?
We're enjoying some nice weather, although I can see outside it's getting extremely windy. And in fact, believe it or not, we are forecasted to get a little bit of snow, I believe, starting tomorrow. Now, I don't know how much. Quite frankly, that doesn't matter. It's the middle of May. There is no reason we should be getting any whatsoever. But that's Colorado. And so we'll take the good with the bad. I love it here, and we have been getting some great spring weather lately. And Greg, again, I see in the chat room, snow is awesome. I actually really do genuinely love all four seasons, but by the middle of May, I'm about ready for no more snow.
Yep, that's why I live in Florida. We skip the seasons that suck. So
summer and not
summer.
Yeah,
more summer.
All right. Well, we got another fun show here tonight. We had Kris Gamble from Live Install, Customized over there in the UK. A man here on the Home Tech Show who needs no introduction. I'm sure everybody listening, unless you're a brand new listener, are familiar with Kris. Stay tuned. Another great conversation with him. We get him on periodically to check in and see what's going on in his world, and we really enjoyed having a chance to chat with him. But as always, before we do that, we're going to jump into some news stories. Quickly, before we start that, we want to thank our supporters of the show, our patrons. If you want to learn a little bit more about how you can support our efforts here at the Home Tech Podcast, head on over to HomeTech.fm/support. Once again, that's HomeTech.fm/support. And that is where you can learn about supporting our efforts here for as little as $1 a month. We've had quite a few people come on board and do that, and we're seeing steady growth in there, and we really appreciate it. And one thing I do want to mention coming off the back of that is that even at that $1 a month level, you do get access to the Hub, which is our private Slack channel, which has really blossomed into a great community of home technology professionals and enthusiasts as well, who love to come together and share ideas. So we really want to thank everybody who's done that.
Absolutely. I'd like to echo those thanks. And say thanks to everybody who's joined us here in the live chat tonight too. That you don't have to be a member for, and you can go over to HomeTech.fm/live, and there's a little link or a place to log right into the chat if you're not on IRC, and that's kind of where we have it going right now. So thanks very much to everybody who can tune in and listen to us live. It does add an interesting dynamic to the show. So
absolutely.
Jason, it's hot here, but it may be a little bit hotter in Indiana because Vin Bruno has suddenly...
I knew where you were going with that.
Vin Bruno has suddenly resigned as CEDIA's president and CEO.
Yeah, very surprising news. I was actually... just a couple of days ago, earlier this week, was joining the guys over at AV Nation. They do their Resi Week show, and they were kind enough to invite me on to participate this week. And literally, I think 5 minutes before we hit go on that episode, the news came across. Somebody spotted it on Twitter or something like that, and came as a surprise to everybody who was on that show, including me. I'm a big fan of Vin Bruno. Just personally, I don't know him well, but from what I do know, very genuine guy. To me, it seemed like a really, really nice guy, very responsive. I know that everybody who has ever had a chance to interact with Vin to a person has always commented on how quick he is to reply and how available he would make himself. So very surprised. I don't know. It is all speculation at this point. We really don't know what happened there. But I do suspect some sort of large difference of opinion about the trajectory. I know Vin really came in with a big agenda and really wanted to move the needle there at Cedia as he saw it in terms of implementing a lot of new agenda items. I know merging with Cedia EMEA was a big thing. Selling the Cedia trade show obviously was huge news. So there was a lot of movement going on there, and it's really hard to say what set all of this in motion. But I can say for sure that it came as a big surprise to me, and I think to the industry as a whole.
Yeah, definitely surprising. I reached out to a couple of guys that I know that are involved with Cedia, and they kind of like shuffled their feet and said they didn't know the reason why he had left. But they said, that he had definitely come in and shake things up and kind of maybe rattled a few people's cages. I don't know. It seems like there's a difference of opinion of what Cedia should be, and what I think Vin was trying to make Cedia into. And there's no better evidence to that than the story that we can reference on CE Pro. From a Cedia founding member, let's get back to luxury roots. Stop membership messing with DIY. Just leave it behind. Interesting story. Interesting. I think it was more of a forum post or a comment that had gotten turned into a story by CE Pro.
Yep.
But this Richard's, I'm going to butcher this guy's name, Stoger, or Storger, was one of Cedia's original founders. He says the Home Technology Association should promote luxury products and services and stop muddling around with the core mission. He also said something I thought was interesting. He thinks that the Cedia expos should be luxury showcases, and not. I mean, Jason, you and I.
What are they?
Yeah, right. What are they? You and I kind of saw this right when we started up HomeTech. Like we went to Cedia and we saw that this was before Ring. Doorbot was there. Nest, I think, was there. There were a bunch of DIY products that started showing up, and we came away from that show scratching our heads. And I think that probably really raised some flags for people and that are Cedia high-end traditionalists that only want to have, the $500,000 and up installs be what Cedia is all about.
Yeah.
You can probably guess by the tone of my voice that I am not on the side of keeping or making Cedia more into a luxury brand. It's not, that is without prejudice.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not what a trade association should be. A trade association should focus on educating consumers, builders, other trades that they exist. Because right now, if you were to walk into any builder in town and say, "Hey, I'm a Cedia guy," and they go, who? They don't even know what Cedia is, because for the most part, they've been absent from every conversation about home technology in the past, 20 decades. I mean, or 20 decades, 20 years. Like Cedia just isn't part of the home planning and construction program. They're an afterthought, and it's an afterthought for most dealers. So to exclude dealers out of the way and exclude members and say, no, this is what we do here. We do these high touch, luxury, white glove, giant theater things, I think is a huge mistake and a giant step in the wrong direction.
Yeah. I think that, to me, Cedia is a luxury showcase, but it can't be just a luxury showcase. And that's what I think I've been consistent about that. In all the years we've been doing the show, and even going back before that, to the extent that these sort of lower end products existed there further back, which obviously has grown. But the point I'm trying to make is that, luxury absolutely has its place in the Cedia show floor.
For sure.
And I think that we can't look at it to the exclusion of everything else. I think that my position on this is, and has always been, that Cedia's responsibility is to really look out for the industry as a whole, and to completely ignore do it for me and do it yourself products and what's happening with GAFA has been the big conversation recently, and all of the movement there. We can't ignore that, and I get a little bit frustrated when I see people talk about we should be luxury and forget about all that other stuff. Well, that's great, and if your company's in a position where you can do that, and maybe you've been in the business for a while and you've built up that book of business, and perhaps you're getting ready to exit the business. Who knows?
Yep.
If you're in a position where you can afford to just completely ignore what's going on at the low end of the market, then I guess more power to you. But CEDIA's job is not to completely ignore market realities as they're occurring. So we can debate all day long about the impact those low end technologies are going to have and how much attention relative to luxury should be paid to that. I get it, but we can't sit here and just paint in black and white and say CEDIA is a luxury show and forget about everything else.
Yeah. This story goes on pushing for someone from inside the luxury market to replace Vin Bruno, and I don't know. I agree wholeheartedly with what you just said. CEDIA should have like the Steinway theaters there, and the JBL synthesis theaters, and like the fancy star ceilings and all that good stuff. Where else are you going to go to see that kind of product? But we'd be ignorant to think that Control4 and Crestron are the only products for automation out there, when clearly Apple HomeKit, Google Home, Amazon Echo are making waves beyond what those 2 to 3 CEDIA type brands are able to do in the larger market. And we have to, as what are we going to call ourselves, technologists or integrators or whatever? We have to, it's our job to work with this stuff. And I think in the story, he says something to that effect, that, my son enjoys his Amazon thing and his Philips Hue lights, but he also likes vinyl, and that makes it high end for him. And I'm like, well, vinyl isn't high end. It's one of those situations. Okay.
Yeah.
We're going to get into the vinyl argument. Well,
yeah. Well, listen, we got a lot of ground to cover here. So let's move on from that. There's clearly a lot of angles to it, and it'll be really interesting to see who does step into Vin's former role there as CEO of CEDIA. A couple of comments in the chat room. Joey, who I work with over there at OneVision, is recommending technology managers. I know that's a big, that's one of our beliefs at OneVision is really that's the way we should be looking at the market moving forward. And so, there's the whole technologist debate. We've talked about that before. And what is our title? I think for now, a lot of us still just settle on the default integrator. The other point I wanted to mention is Kris, who our guest on the show tonight that we alluded to, is tuned in for the live portion here of the news, and makes a comment that I think a lot of us forget, where Apple is luxury, right? I mean, what is more luxury than Apple? And so I don't want to dive down that rabbit hole, but I do think that's an interesting point. I thought it was worth mentioning when we talk about CEDIA being a luxury show. I get what this author was trying to convey, but maybe we have to redefine luxury.
I get what he's going after there, both Kris and this gentleman here, but I think he's talking beyond Apple and what people use for their smartphones. We really don't have a choice these days of what we pick up and put on our ears to talk to people with. It's going to be either an Apple or Android, or that's pretty much it. I mean, there's no other difference in that. The luxury experience is the app that runs your home, or the product that's in it. And I mean, you can say all day that a $100,000 system is better than a $5,000 system, but at the end of the day, if it opens up and closes the blinds, like, really, are you going to tell me there's that much more value in $100,000 system than there is in the $2,000 or $3,000 system? They're literally doing the same thing, and I think there's a whole lot of area in the middle that luxury is going to have to come down to meet expectations of people that are in the lower part of the market moving up. Like, it's, and I say lower, we're talking, those $100,000, $200,000 jobs. Like, this is all changing daily. And I mean, today we had Google I/O, which Google announced new new integrations with Google Home. How many of the luxury clients that you're going to have out there are going to come in and say, "Hey, can I do this?" They're going to come in tomorrow and ask you, "Hey, can I go ahead and set this Google Home up, even when it's not even out yet? But can I go ahead and have Google Home kick off my HBO? That'd be great." And they're going to be the ones interested in doing this cutting edge stuff when people down market who all the products are actually made for are going to be late to adopt it because price is still a barrier for them.
Right. Well, you alluded to Google I/O here. Let's move into that because that was today. Today's Wednesday, May 17th, as we're sitting here recording this, and Google I/O started today. They had their keynote. I was able to sit and watch a little bit of it. Did not watch the whole thing. Some interesting highlights definitely that came out of it. We'll link to a story on The Verge that says Google kicked off their annual developer conference this week. Some of the highlights here: Google Assistant can see and understand the world around you. So they've got this sort of augmented reality thing they're calling Google Lens, I believe, which had some interesting features. Not a lot directly related to the smart home that I saw right away, but I haven't had time to really sit and digest it. But just if you're familiar with augmented reality, I think there could be some interesting plays there, and you can go check that out, read about it a little bit. Google Assistant coming to iPhone. That was a pretty big announcement, I think, for people who like to use Google Assistant and own an iPhone. Clearly going to benefit from that. Some updates to Google Photos, a number of other things. But obviously the big one that we want to talk about here is Google Home, of course. And there were some interesting stories there. It did receive fairly prominent billing. They got into it relatively quickly out of the gate. Some of the new features, proactive assistance on the Google Home. So, for instance, could automatically notify you if it knows of a calendar event, for instance, that you need to go to, and there's heavy traffic. It'll proactively alert you that you need to leave. Nothing too revolutionary there. I think phones already kind of do that, but I guess cool to have that in the Google Home. Hands-free calling, that's a big one. We obviously see Echo moving in that direction, and now Google Home is doing it too. So I think there could be some interesting use cases for that. Audio, this one I thought was kind of cool. Spotify, for people who are somewhat familiar with Spotify, they've got their free tier that you can use on a computer, and then typically to use it on a smartphone or something, you got to have their premium tier. Well, I'm understanding from the announcement today that Spotify, the free tier, is actually going to be available on Google Home, and that's a pretty cool feature, I think.
Yeah. A couple other things. You kind of glazed over one of the really cool features that got a huge amount of applause on the live stream that they put out today. The augmented reality. This kind of, most people think about this, and you bring your phone up and look at a restaurant sign, and you can see the ratings. It's kind of one of the examples that they give. Yep. Or you can point to you can point to a hot dog, and maybe it would identify it. That's a little joke that came from another HBO show. There's evidently an app that you can download that will identify a hot dog. It will tell you if it's a hot dog or not, which is awesome. Let's see. But the really cool, one of the features that got a huge amount of applause was holding your phone up to the bottom of your router and taking a picture of that tiny little text that's on there.
Yeah, I did see that one.
It will scan that text, read the Wi-Fi SSID and password, and put them into the phone. Genius idea. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've been in a rack behind something, using my phone to take a picture of the bottom of the thing because I can't read it, and then I get it into the phone and have to zoom in to the little tiny letters because it's dark in there. Yeah, this is a great idea. I
thought that one was pretty neat.
That's part of their augmented reality. So I mean, it's interesting that kind of like a little small frustration / tie over into the home with that. I thought that was a pretty cool thing.
Yeah. Well, and obviously the the power of that, being able to do that visual analysis, can have some big implications that'll go, I'm sure, well beyond the smart home. So very, very powerful technology, and will be interesting to see what some of the implementations are of that moving forward. On the audio front, SoundCloud and Deezer support added, Bluetooth support added for audio, so you can stream from your iPhone or Android device. On the video side, a couple of cool things. They added HBO Now, which is a pretty neat feature. But I thought the visual responses, I don't know if you had a chance to see this, Seth, but I thought it was pretty neat. So they they showed one example where the guy said, hey, show me what's on my calendar today. And the Chromecast enabled TV is able to recognize that the Google Home is sending it a visual response. And so it kicks the TV on and it displays your calendar right up on the TV. So integrating that idea of visual responses with other Chromecast enabled devices in the home adds a whole nother layer to sort of the interactivity and the data that Google Home is able to convey to the user. So I thought that was a pretty interesting feature, and will be cool to see how that's implemented. Yeah,
definitely. I didn't see that. I saw that it was one of their features, and they kind of gave a couple of examples. I just think that's what Google showed off today was what they're doing with artificial intelligence, what they're doing with programming. Like, there wasn't really hardware. Like, there was no fancy phone that was announced. There was no fancy computer. We already have Google in a can. There was nothing that really blew you away. And of course, this is a software conference, right? But I think what Google outlined today was pretty big. And I think we're going to see, moving forward, we're going to see a huge amount of effort put into their products by these home technology type companies. I mean, I'll give you an example. They're opening up Google Assistant to the iPhone, but they're also opening up an SDK for programmers to go ahead and get in there and meddle with things. And that's what Amazon did with the Echo. How the Google Assistant clearly works better with more voices, with more in more countries, more dialects, with people's, in every respect, it works better. And here we are standing on the edge of this saying, okay, the SDK is out. Now it's going to be a race to see how many people work with Google Home. So I can tell you this is like what I saw today and what I read in the summaries of things. Google has done a huge amount with AI and machine learning here, and I think we're about to actually benefit from it for once, rather than being served up ads all the time. Like, we're about to actually really see some cool stuff being made from this product. So I'm excited about it. This is big news. A lot of this stuff doesn't really touch home technology, so to speak. But with Google being kind of in the home and kind of playing with that Google Home Chromecast angle, I really think that they could do something kind of outside of the box, way outside of the box of what we're used to. And
yeah, definitely.
Hopefully we'll see that soon.
Definitely. I agree. I came away feeling like Google was really making that AI a huge piece, and obviously there's a lot of horsepower there with what they're doing, and so it'll be really, really cool to see. Like you said, what are the implications of that and the ramifications in the smart home, because eventually all that stuff will bleed through, I believe. Speaking of voice control, it does call to mind that space is of course continuing to heat up. Story I think we missed a couple of weeks ago. We had it on the queue, but just didn't get it in there. Harman Kardon now has the Invoke, which is a Cortana powered, so Cortana in a can, so to speak. Shortly following that, HP came out with one, and I don't remember exactly what they're calling theirs. I believe Harman Kardon's is the Invoke, and then HP has one as well. So a couple of Cortana devices to compete with that Google Home Echo form factor. And of course, we've got the rumors circulating and heating up right now about Apple and what they're going to do at WWDC. I think it's pretty widely accepted now that they've got Siri in a can coming. It doesn't seem like there's a total agreement about whether or not it will show in June at WWDC, but there does seem to be some unanimity about the fact that it is coming eventually. And the big question, of course, with that one right now, the big conversation is around whether or not it will include a touch screen, which I think is a whole conversation we could have about the merits of that. And you've got the Echo Show that just released recently, and we're sort of waiting to see how that does in the market. But yeah, this space is really just continuing to heat up, and I'm starting to feel like we need a specific term to describe the, right now everybody just describes them as Echo competitors, right? And I think what they're trying to convey there and capture is in essence, the form factor, a stationary device that sits on the countertop. I don't think we can really describe them as assistants, because an assistant can live on your phone, could live on a computer, even in the case of like a Cortana or even Siri now. And so we've got to come up with a concise way to describe this category. And if anybody has good ideas on that, I'd love to hear them. You can tweet us at HomeTech Podcast. But I've been noticing that it is sort of this category now that we don't really have a concise way to refer to, other than calling everything an Echo competitor.
Yeah, Echo, the Kleenex of home.
Exactly.
Yeah, but, I'm curious to see. I know there's a lot of rumors floating around about Apple. I'm really curious to see if they do make a dive into a home-centered device like this, what the updates to HomeKit will be this year. Because we are moving. This is not a product. Typically a product type meeting. Like this is for their developers to go and get excited about what's coming next in the software side of things. So I'm really, this is where HomeKit was announced. And of course it took 2 years for us to even see probably the first HomeKit product. So I'm really excited to see what they come out with this year to upgrade and extend HomeKit. And if it does involve this new voice device, which like you said, kind of seems like there's enough rumors floating around. Siri in the can may be real this time. I'm not holding my breath, because I did that so many
learned
so
your
many
lesson.
Years. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I will be genuinely curious to see what updates HomeKit gets this year, because it every year they have added some major things into it, and we've seen more and more products come online because of it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, speaking of HomeKit, one of the stories we wanted to touch on here is 9to5Mac released a video and blog post highlighting a recent tour they took of the first Apple HomeKit model homes. These are homes built by Brookfield Residential, a big builder here in the States. The Delano at Eastwood Village, located out in Irvine, California. 9to5Mac went out there, met with Brookfield's COO, Adrian Foley, and toured the home, which includes devices like a Schlage Sense smart lock, lighting and shades by Lutron. I think that was about it. It was a fairly basic offering. I was actually sort of struck by that. I don't know what I expected going into it, but it wasn't a ton of layers to it. I don't think they mentioned a thermostat, although I may have missed that. But in any event, it was interesting to see a good video. I thought some of the talking points there with Adrian Foley were kind of, it was interesting to see that builder's perspective. Very much an emphasis on this being a standard package. It almost sounded like they were really making a concerted effort to keep clients in the sandbox and not have this be a custom thing that they have to get involved in, which anybody who's worked in the smart home installation space can completely understand from the builder's perspective why that would be. I think the blinds were the Lutron shades were actually an additional option on top of their base package. He talked about an upgraded Ring doorbell coming in quote June or July is what he said. I'm wondering if
that's our Elite, I think.
Yeah, referring to the Ring Elite. Said they were going to offer that as an upgrade free of charge. We're getting a little bit nuanced here, but what I thought was interesting about that is the Ring Elite is actually going to go install into a single gang box. And so did they pre-wire the homes expecting that and put a box there and now they have to figure out how to deal with it, because he talked about, that was going to be a free upgrade to people, which I kind of caught my attention just thinking about the installation perspective of that. But in any event,
I bet you anything that there will be an external box mount that Ring provides that looks fine.
Yeah.
But I think kind of.
But why would they do it as a free upgrade? I don't know. I just thought that was interesting. But that's pretty nuanced. Not here, neither here nor there. The last thing I wanted to say about this story that I also caught my attention is the tech support portion, which they actually Brookfield has created their own in-house service department to take care of this stuff, or I guess an extension of their existing service department. And And so that was a question that I had going into the story is how are they doing this and how are they planning to service this moving forward? And so I think it's interesting that they're planning to keep that support in-house, and it'll be, we'll have to see how that works out for them.
Yeah. So I kind of go back to one of the things you said about this being a very basic plan where a basic setup where the builder doesn't really have to get involved too much. These guys have gotten very involved. They've set up a tech support department inside of their offices. And if anybody has an issue in these couple neighborhoods that are going to have these technology packages, they get directed to their own in-house tech support. There's no dealer involved. This is going strictly through the builder. And maybe there's some kind of alarm guy that gets to pull the wire and put in the Unify system. It was definitely Ubiquiti Unify stuff they were putting in. But once that stuff gets deployed and set up, you can remotely manage Unify, and you can also create VPNs in between the two homes or between the support office and the remote location fairly easily with the right setup. And it's not expensive. So I can imagine seeing a pretty decent tech support system. There was some thought that went into setting this up, and it wasn't just like, hey, we're going to throw some lights in. I think they were using a Wi-Fi thermostat. It was a Honeywell branded Wi-Fi thermostat.
Got it.
But I definitely see that there was some effort put into this at a very high level, and then it got down into the low level details. Like this is something that has to be rolled out. This is a checkbox on how you order your house. This is like, oh yeah, I want granite countertops. I want the upgraded door pulls, and oh yeah, let's go ahead and get the smart home package for an extra $3,000 or $4,000. Maybe more than that, I don't know. But these are just checkboxes for the builder, and every single one of these homes has the same exact thing put in. Tech support's not going to be that difficult once you get it down once or twice and figure out what the pain points are going to be. These guys were talking about being able to adjust and move on the fly. And I think that this was very well thought out and very well done from a design standpoint, like an integrator standpoint. This was extremely well done by this builder. And I hope they get some good luck out of this. They certainly got some good press out of it.
Yep, they definitely did. Well, let's move on here. Actually, one last story that we wanted to touch on, and just because I thought this was a really cool story, very early conceptual, I think prototype device. These are called synthetic sensors, and I'm not sure, Seth, if you had a chance to look at these over the week.
Oh,
but,
yeah,
really
cool.
Really cool story. In an effort to just going to read a little bit here from one of the stories we bookmarked on Wired here. Paraphrasing, obviously. In an effort to bring more intelligence to our environments, a team from Carnegie Mellon University is charting new territory with an approach they call synthetic sensors. So traditional approaches to creating a smart environment rely either on specialized devices, think like smart appliances, like a smart refrigerator or smart washing machine, or numerous aftermarket distributed sensors that you could attach to these devices. Those can obviously get expensive in quantity and often function in silos. And so what this team has done is actually taken a very unique new approach, and they're utilizing a single highly capable sensor which plugs into an electrical outlet and can then monitor everything in a room. And these sensors are being developed by the Future Interfaces Group. This is a research lab over there at Carnegie Mellon. And I want to make sure we include a link to their website, which is figlab.com, figlab.com. If you're interested in sort of learning about where the interfaces and next generation interfaces may be headed in the smart home, definitely go check them out. They've got some really cool conceptual stuff on their website. But you got to go look at this video. We'll include it in the show notes. Really neat what these things are able to do. You plug a single sensor into the kitchen, for example, and they show the sensor picking up, various acoustic signatures like turning on the faucet, turning on the blender, and by the different raw data, acoustical sounds, heat signatures, a number of different things that the sensor can pick up. It can tell what's going on in the room. And then they talk about that's raw data that is then converted into first order sensing or synthetic sensors. So, it picks up the audio signature of the faucet, tells you the faucet is running, and then that can actually be converted into even a second order sensor, which can basically be a virtual water consumption meter. And so the power, when you start to think about all of the different things that you could potentially monitor with a single sensor that could just be plugged into an electrical outlet, really, really is fascinating. And I think gives us a glimpse into the future of the intelligent home where a lot of this intelligence is literally going to be built into the fabric of the house.
Yeah, you would think today like they would use cameras for all this stuff, and these little sensors aren't cameras. They have no video sensor on them at all.
Yeah, in fact, there was no camera at all. Yep.
So they can tell just by the noises that are being made, the accelerometers that are triggered, the electrical impulses that come from maybe the microwave running or the kettle turning on, what is going on inside a particular room or inside the house. And this is absolutely fascinating. And I think we're probably 10 years away from actual commercial product with this in there. Who knows? We may see something on Indiegogo tomorrow, but
it's pretty futuristic stuff, though. You're right.
Yeah, I mean, this is fascinating because one little tiny sensor, and it's what, the size of like a wall wart that you'd plug into the wall.
Yep.
You plug that in, and it's able to kind of figure out, okay, that's a faucet that's running. It's been running this long. We know how much water comes out of a faucet. Here's an estimate on how many liters are coming out of it. I mean, it's really, really fascinating to see what a package of sensors can figure out and deduce from all this data that just kind of gets put together.
Yep. And that'll be the real question is, what do you do with that data and how do you make it useful and actionable? But I think just the fact that you can have that single sensor, hopefully by the time this thing comes to market, fairly inexpensive, and they're able to figure that out. And hopefully it does come to market. Hopefully this technology does make its way forward. But I agree with you. Fascinating. Definitely go check out the video. We will include a link to that at HomeTech.fm/162. But let's jump in here to our interview, Seth. Again, we had Kris Gamble on from Live Install. Kris joined us to give us an update on what's going on in his neck of the woods over there in the UK. He's got a number of interesting initiatives going on with his installation company, really pushing and leveraging, I would say pushing the limits of what can be done with HomeKit technology and DIY products in general. Also had an opportunity recently to go out to a trade show over there, Essential Install Live, and gave us a rundown on that. And a couple of other miscellaneous thoughts that were just fun to share with Kris. We always enjoy having him on. So without further ado, let's jump into our conversation with Kris Gamble. Hey, Kris, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Hi, Jason. I'm very well. How's things with you?
They're going great. I was excited to get you back on. It's been a little while. We've adjusted our recording schedule here, so it's a little bit earlier for you, but still late at night there in the UK. And as always, we appreciate you staying up to join us.
No, I do appreciate the slightly earlier time, and I'd just like to say congratulations on your new job in person. I know I've spoken to you.
Oh, thank you.
Digitally, but I'd like to say congrats on that, and I wish you all the best.
I appreciate that. It's a very very exciting opportunity. If anybody's listening who may not have heard, I recently started in a new role at One Vision Resources here in the States, and won't get into all that, but it's been a lot of fun so far, and I really appreciate you saying that. So before we jump in here, we'll mention that Seth is tending to his daughter. It sounds like some things came up, Kris, so it's just going to be you and me tonight, and look forward to catching up with you. We're gonna talk about a number of things, but let's just start with you. What's new and exciting in your part of the world there?
Okay, the last time we spoke was around ISE, and in just that short few months, it's been full on as usual for Customized. We've launched some new services. We've gone into our busy period of exhibiting at shows, both nationally and locally. And we're still just pushing hard the smart home message on our doorstep and in London, where we also work.
Yeah, gotcha. Well, I know you've been very busy with some new initiatives, and we're going to talk about those specifically. And you also mentioned some shows as well. Essential Install Live, I know was recently, and we're going to jump into that. I know you mentioned as we were preparing for the show that this is traditionally a pretty busy time of year for you, getting ready to exhibit at some local events. I think you do things like, county shows. You mentioned a polo show, city and street events. Talk about that a little bit, because I don't know a lot of home technology companies here in the States off the top of my head that do those sort of local fairs or local exhibits. How did those work out for you?
Yeah, for us, it's a big part of our annual routine. We try to fit in at least a dozen shows per year, which could be as small scale as an evening event through to some that stretch to 8 or 9 days. This year, we are definitely focusing more on our own doorstep, as I said, and we've identified shows where we will have face-to-face opportunities to speak about smart home with consumers direct. And we've put together some fun exhibits and some hands-on tech to introduce them to smart home, because we still feel that the consumer is very, very unaware of what's possible for a very small amount of money nowadays.
Yeah, without question. So we're going to talk about that. I actually want to hit right out of the gate here pretty much some big, I would say big social media news coming from you, Kris. You're very well known in the industry for the live install hashtag. That, of course, being a big thing on Twitter. But I've been following your social media activities lately, and I've actually noticed a lot more activity from you on Instagram and Facebook. I think you're still, of course, maintaining a Twitter presence, but talk about the overall landscape of social media in the home technology world and how you see things evolving there.
Yeah, we've put a lot of effort recently to start to build a following on two main platforms, and that's Instagram and Facebook, which have been out there for a very, very long time. But we have been guilty as a business of not putting enough content on there and focused on Twitter, probably because of the instant engagement, the thousands of followers that we quickly gathered. We're finding Instagram and Facebook a lot harder, so it's a challenge, which we enjoy. We're able to put longer posts on these two platforms, so much more content. We can do live video, pre-recorded video. We can be very, very more. We can be more targeted. So, an example on Instagram, we can narrow down who we want to target within yards of where we're working that day. So, if we were working in West London, I could tag my live install posts for West London. I can also search that area to see who's also putting out content at that moment. I can engage with them through direct messaging or comments. I can even see who the major influencers are in that area. So, for example, a personal trainer in West London who may have 70, 80,000 followers. We can go straight to him with, this is what we're doing. Do you like what we're doing? We enjoy your posts, to build up some communication. And we're finding that hand-to-hand social media interaction is paying big dividends. It's like handing out virtual business cards whilst we work, which we weren't getting on Twitter.
Yeah, no, I saw some of the dialogue you were having about how the two platforms compare, and I thought it was interesting. I sort of joke about it here on the show. I've got a presence on Twitter, and we, of course, have the HomeTech podcast handle as well, and we do our best to keep an active presence there, but it's hard, and I admittedly am not the greatest about social media, and so I find the opinions of people who've actually really gotten in there and gotten their hands dirty to be interesting. And I know you mentioned that really you sort of see Twitter almost as a better for B2B communications, and really Facebook and Instagram are providing a very powerful tool for you to connect directly with the consumers. So I think that's interesting to see, and it's definitely food for thought, I think, for any home technology a professional who's trying to evaluate social media platforms. There's only so many hours in a day, and I think you kind of have to pick your battles to a certain extent. And so considering who your target audience is, if you're trying to connect with builders or direct to consumers, maybe worth considering.
Yeah, what we're targeting is consumers, and we're being very selective of who who we're chasing down on Instagram, but it's so easy to find them. It's much harder on Twitter to find these people. But B2B, Twitter rules without a doubt. But we feel we've done a good shift on there. We will still continue to put out content, and actually we rely on it still to get some of our messages out there because we built up such a following on Twitter.
All right, Kris. Well, that makes a lot of sense. Like I said, I really appreciate your insights on the social media stuff. We actually want to pause here and welcome Seth to the show. Seth, better late than never. Glad you're joining us for the interview. Everything go okay with getting your daughter down?
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me, Jason. And yeah, she finally went to sleep.
all the fathers out there can relate. Seth was tending to some family matters at kickoff time here, so we went ahead and jumped into our interview with Kris. But we thought it was worth it to pause and bring Seth to the table here to finish out this interview. So let's roll back into it, Kris. We alluded to this a couple of times so far here in our little intro section, and I think it's a really interesting venture. So let's jump in and talk about it. You've got a new push that you're doing as a company there. You're the 1, 3, and 5 day smart home install. Tell us about that from a high level. What is the overall goal? What makes it different from what you've been doing before? And then we can talk a little bit about how it's been going.
Yeah, we kind of introduced the 1, 3, and 5 day smart home services on this show. Put it out there.
That's right.
A few months ago, and have tried in the last few months to give it as much attention as it deserves, as well as balancing our traditional installations. The traditional installations for us are quite long, drawn-out affairs, from consultation through to design, lots of cabling, second fix work, installation programming, and then the client moves in. And that period of time could go for between 6 months and 18 months, quite often.
Oh yeah.
And the products we used on those were what I would call the traditional professional smart home brands, like Crestron, KNX, HDL. Now, as these DIY products become more mature, the platforms become more well known by the consumer, we found it hard to ignore that a lot of the services we were offering in these long drawn out projects, we may be able to achieve them in a much quicker time with a lot less mess, a lot less cost to the homeowner. So we did some brainstorming, identified the products, and came up with some smart home with speed packages. They've developed now to still three packages, distinct packages, but 1, 2, and 3 day services. Them down is simply by whittling down the products, what would be available in each package, calculating the labor time, trialing installs, trialing products to see what worked. And the one that we'll be pushing the most is obviously the most attractive one to the homeowner, is the 1 day smart home, which is based around the Apple HomeKit platform. The HomeKit platform would take care of lights, heating, security, sensors, and monitoring. And when I say monitoring, it's just monitoring things like humidity, temperature, air quality. Bolted onto that are products that we've used for many years, which don't operate in the HomeKit platform yet. So we enable multi-room music with Sonos and whole house Wi-Fi with the unified range of access points and the routers. So with a small amount of equipment, circa £1,000, and an installation of between 7-9 hours by 2 qualified engineers, which would total around about £700 to £900, we put a fixed price on the one-day smart home, £2,000, fully installed, with handover, with aftercare. And we've started rolling that out. Low key to start with. We're not a company with limitless budgets to advertise like crazy about it, but we've strategically identified where we're going to advertise it and market it in the coming months. And we've started to get some bites now on it, on our doorstep, which is exactly what we wanted.
Well, I'm curious about that. Here in the States, we're seeing more and more home builders start to offer HomeKit type packages into their systems. And I'm curious what your homeowner's reception of HomeKit product is. Are you finding that people are reaching out to you and asking you for HomeKit specifically, or are they just finding out about it after you've installed it, and then and they don't even know what HomeKit is, but they know that it works on their phone? How is the reception from the end user?
They don't know. They don't know what it is.
That's what Simple. I figured.
They don't know what it is. It's our efforts to raise awareness that's introducing to them, and that's the same thing we've done for 5 years in business. Nobody knew HDL, KNX, Control4, Crestron, Lutron, all these brands. Nobody knew about them. But we're finding that that conversation to get them on board is a lot shorter.
So it's like a
brand awareness.
It's like a gateway drug at that point. Like it's a gateway into the smart home.
Yeah, 3 words: Apple Smart Home. They're generally convinced just by that 3 words strung together. Bolt on another well-known brand like Sonos. Show that products within the package are ones that friends, colleagues, or they've pre-owned in the past, like Apple TV. Things they've seen advertised now on television, like Ring doorbell. Piece those together, and it's you're putting a date in the diary. And the price has been fixed, so there's nothing hidden as well, which used to be a thing was a thing in previous projects we've done, where the number changes every time. It can range from 20,000 to 40,000 to 65,000 to 10,000. So the efficiency it's bringing our back office staff is so refreshing as well. They know what they're going to be facing every day now. So at the moment in the UK, builders have not embraced HomeKit like we've seen in builders in the US. I still think that's maybe 12 to 18 months away, but it will come. But we want to be ready for that. We want to be the builder's best friend. So we're getting in early.
That's great. I commend you for getting out there and trying something different. We'll definitely look forward to, hearing back from you when we get you on next time to talk a little bit more about it and hear how that's going. I know you've been experimenting with HomeKit quite a bit personally. I, again, have seen your social media posts about it and really, I think, working on it to understand the product fully and know exactly what it is you're selling. I mean, what are your overall impressions of HomeKit so far? The good, the bad, what needs improvement? How's your experience been in general?
I don't get hassled by sales reps anymore, which is good. It's really refreshing. I'm able to purchase products as they become available. I'm well aware that the HomeKit platform in the UK is still quite lean, but I'm happy that it ticks all the major boxes. It enables us to build these packages. And it means we can't oversell because we're playing with very tight limitations. Allows us to get to know the platform quite quick. So to date, we've tested just over 20 HomeKit compatible products that are available in the UK. There's a few that are on our radar that we need to purchase. There have been glitches. I'm not going to say it's been perfect, and I did not expect it to be. bearing in mind that we are trying to operate a home with voice and app. We are trying to operate a wireless system, so we don't have that robustness of wires to lean on. We're starting to see where products are not as reliable in certain scenarios as we would have hoped. And for us, the biggest gap for us is in lighting. UK is very underserviced with HomeKit compatible light switches, whereas you guys are blessed with the talents of Lutron Caseta, their wireless system, which seems to be the builder's choice for these home builders that have embraced HomeKit in their new construction projects. We don't have that, and it's something that we're always monitoring at Lutron, because we feel that could be a huge benefit to our packages. And I think it would also be a tipping point for a lot of other UK dealers, probably from the electrical sector, to thrive with installing home automation and smart home systems.
Yeah, definitely. Well, like I said, keep us posted. As our listeners know, you're a recurring guest on the show, so I'm sure we'll have you on again sooner than later, and we'll look forward to hearing about all of those ventures. Let's shift gears here a little bit. We are going to close out the show talking about your experience at Essential Install Live, and look forward to hearing about that. But speaking about trade shows and just wanting to be timely here, very, very big news in the Cedia channel broke just a couple of days ago here as we sit and record, and that is Vin Bruno stepping down as the CEO of Cedia. And I know you, like a lot of us in the I guess sort of press position of Cedia, and who are out there doing the social media thing and blogging and podcasting, had a relationship with Vin, dealt with him fairly closely, I believe, and we're curious to hear your thoughts on his departure from Cedia.
Yeah, I first met Vin. He visited the UK. He'd just become CEO of Cedia, and at that time I wasn't a Cedia member. We have since become members. We're now in our second year of membership. And with honesty, I became a Cedia member because he reached out to me when he was in the UK. We had a sit down, talked about the landscape, and only a week or so later, I joined Cedia. So he was a big part of that decision. I was hugely surprised when I read of his resignation. I had a lot of respect for the work that he'd done in a short space of time. Significant change in tactics from Cedia were apparent during his reign. The communication was very, very good. Their engagement with all parts of the industry, new and old, were consistent. Hey, that guy's going to go on and do great things for someone else. I'm sure we'll all hear from him soon. I just want to say thanks to what he's done, and wish him all the best in his new
definitely.
ventures.
He was a hustler. Like I don't think I've known anybody to work as much as he did on one particular thing. He was always on Twitter, it seemed. You could mention Cedia and then he would get back to you within a matter of minutes, no matter the time of day, which was kind of crazy. I remember there was a news story where they reached out to him and he called, of course, from the road traveling between stops and doing business. So I mean, I really do wonder what happened there. I mean, it's all speculation now, but I think there was just what it looks like and what it sounds like. There may have just been a big difference of opinion, but I don't know. We'll hopefully be able to figure out what it is later. But let's go ahead and move on to the EI Live show and talk about what you saw there. I see here in notes, and I saw on Twitter, the HD Anywhere Cube was a big attraction again. What did you see at the show, and what What'd you like about it?
Yeah, so again, we visited the EI Live show. It's one that we've gone to for a number of years. This year, it was, great turnout from all the major suppliers, manufacturers, and distributors. I would say that the majority of them really went hard this year. Bigger stands, more products, new launches of products.
Do you think that's a change in the economy there in the UK, or is it what's driving that? Do you think
there's more people in the industry, so there's more money being spent with these people, these distributors, so they're able to show off even more, support the dealers even further. Huge step up from ones that last year had tabletop style stands to this year having full blown exhibition stands with lighting, background music, and all the bells and whistles you'd expect from some of the bigger distributors. So the smaller guys or the new arrivals to distributing products in our sector are taking it a lot more serious than they were even just 12 months ago. I was a little bit critical last year, and I said, some of them are just not trying. They're sitting back, they're relaxed. I think they've now seen that there's some new arrivals distributing products. You can buy Sonos from 4 or 5 outlets. You can buy Unify from 3 or 4 outlets. It's great for the installer. We can pick and choose where we go. What we did see, overriding, there was 2 things that stood out from the show. Home cinema was so dominant. There were so many home cinema exhibits, interactive demonstrations, and the other major exhibitor was brands in the HD-based T and HDMI over IP sectors, and how they're all competing hard to win, to be the preferred brand for video distribution.
Sure. Yeah, we don't often reference our back end notes here that we work off of. Of course, we do have those, but I do have to ask, because you had a note on here related to HD-based T that said "Last Chance Saloon?" ? And I have to know some clarification on that. Are you just referring to the hyper competitive nature of that market as you perceive it?
I think that comment is, for my business, we don't do a lot of HD distribution in terms of 8 HDMI sources to 8 screens. It just doesn't happen in our projects.
Yep.
Probably because I struggle to find 8 set-top boxes nowadays. I know people use them a lot. I struggle to see where you're now even getting 4 set-top boxes. Multiple set-top boxes from Sky, which is the main TV supplier in the UK, Virgin TV. It's all going towards apps, small media streamers. Some are the size of USB storage keys. That can be hidden behind the screen. Apple TV with Bluetooth remote control, so you don't need that line of sight. It's just a change in viewing habits in general.
Yeah.
The UK set-top box is disappearing. DVD players gone. And the TV's fully loaded with all the content providers in app format.
Yeah, and I don't think there's a lot of home technology professionals out there who are too sad to see the Blu-ray player, DVD player on its way out. I know from a design and installation perspective that was always a tricky thing, figuring out where that's going to live, how to backfeed audio, how you deal with surround sound, all that sort of thing, and yeah, I agree. It's obviously it's a topic we talk about a lot here on the show, and in the evolving nature of video distribution and where that is all headed and going to end up, and clearly, I do think there are applications for it, but I think, like you said, as everything is moving more and more to apps and software, those applications are becoming fewer and far between, and there are a lot of manufacturers in that space. So you just have to wonder how that's all gonna shake out. I know you also mentioned at the show covering the Smart Building Awards. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it's an annual celebration of best products, best staff, various different categories from home cinema to home automation and both commercial and residential products and installations. They do that on the first day of the show, the evening of that, drinks reception, run through the winners, photo opportunity, backslapping and networking. And it's just a good let your hair down evening, which then peters out into heading for restaurants and bars around the venue. I do feel that it lacks a little bit of engagement with the installers. It's very weighted towards products and distribution, and I can understand why it is that, especially it being an awards from a magazine, and they have advertising to fill. But it doesn't go far enough with installers, and they have very few opportunities nowadays to be honoured for their work, apart from the CD Awards, which are probably one of the most exclusive awards to be part of. I struggle to think of anywhere that honours the good work by the front line of the industry.
Yeah, that's always a tough one. I saw that you met Bruno there in friend of the show, Bruno Napoli, out of France, and he came up. We had him on the show last week. You were on the show this week. How did it go? How did the meeting go?
He was the star of Essential Install show. Seriously, he
was he signing autographs or taking pictures?
He was all that. He was. I don't know how many selfies he took with people at that show, but he'll have a phone full of selfies with the greats of the UK custom install scene. First time I've met Bruno, spoken to him numerous times on your platform on Slack, plus on social media with his Twitter handle, and 3 or 4 hours just flew by as we spoke about GAFA, and we spoke about maintenance versus service. He spoke about his upcoming blogs, which are going to be very exciting to read. He spoke very highly of both of you guys. He's a huge fan of the show, and he's enjoying quite rightly, he's enjoying the spotlight that he's got at the moment with his blog that was posted on his own site and then spread through every outlet within our industry. I've encouraged him to try and get on camera. He needs. The guy he's just full of great information, that experience he has on both sides of both installation and in products. People like that, they need to share on video. I said, Instagram, Facebook, you need to have a YouTube channel, because I was just captivated by him for the 3 hours I spent with him.
Yeah, I could totally relate to that. I, as people who listen to the show know, went out to ISE this year for my first time, thanks largely to Bruno as well as the team over at Zapiti, which is a media server company. Bruno, of course, has Krika, which is his RSM company, and they co-sponsor that trip. But I say that only because I actually ended up staying in an apartment, or I guess what you call a flat over there during the show, and really got a chance to get to know Bruno. And I agree with you. I think he's a very, very intelligent guy, knows a lot about the industry, has a unique perspective, and just a fun guy to hang out with and talk to. Totally agree. Very charismatic and just a good guy all around. And so I think I agree with you. I think the spotlight's on Bruno right now, and hopefully he can capitalize on that and really step up and use it as a platform to share more of his opinions about the industry. So, Kris, we're running up on our time here. Is there anything else top of mind that jumped out to you about the show? Just overall impressions, or anything else you want to share as we move to wrap up here?
Yeah, maybe a little bit negative to end it, but I spoke about it before. These shows need to do a lot better attracting electricians, security professionals, satellite and aerial installers, home builders, architects. And the engagement level with these people is poor. They clearly have the resources to reach out to these members of the construction industry. And, again, I want to help as much as I can to reach out to these people and get them to come to these shows so that we can sit down as multiple industries and work out how we can improve infrastructure in homes, how we can make smart home living a reality for millions instead of the 1% of the 1%. I'd like to see greater range of products in the lower price point at these shows in the future. Will it ever happen? I'm not sure, but I think distributors will be tuned into HomeKit products very, very soon. And they'll start to take them from the US over to the UK. I think that'll happen with brands like Leviton, probably be the first one to get a bit of a UK makeover. So disappointing not to see electricians primarily. I think they were the big thing that was missing from the show. And I didn't see enough HomeKit, but that's just me being selfish.
Well, not all that sounded negative. I got to say, there were some pretty positive things you mentioned there. So, Kris, I want to thank you very much for joining us on the show here. I don't know if you guys said this at the beginning of the show, but if somebody wants to reach out and touch base with you, what's a good way to do that?
Okay, I'd normally say Twitter, but I'm going to say get on Instagram, find...
Here we go.
Our handle on Instagram is customized1. I'm gutted I didn't get customized. And on Facebook, if you just search for customized in the search bar on Facebook. So seek us out on those two platforms. Follow us, like us, engage with us. If you're an installer, see what we're doing on those platforms, and the content we're putting out there is slightly different from what we used to do on Twitter. And then get involved. Still use hashtag #LiveInstall because that hashtag is present on all the social media platforms. So yeah, look for us on Instagram.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks again, Kris. We appreciate you joining us, and we'll look forward to having you on again soon.
Cool. Enjoyed that. Thanks, guys.
All right. Take care.